My name is Michelle Block. I'm a previs artist at the Third Floor London. I've been at the company for 5 years now, but I've been doing previs for too many years that I really want to disclose. So basically I manage animation, previs, techvis, and sometimes help out on virtual production shows. Like I say, I've worked on various sort of films and television. And yeah, I think it's a fantastic job, and it's a very exciting sort of industry to work in. Previs was a complete accident because I started off as a landscape architect, and I trained, and I was passionate about digital design, and I loved design, and I wanted to become an asset builder. And I retrained. I went to study animation at Media Design School in New Zealand. And I came straight back to the UK and tried to get work doing work with architectural companies or landscape architectural companies. But the first job interview I went for was previs, and I had no idea what previs actually was. But I thought, well, it sounds interesting. It's film, you know. I'll go in. I can watch a movie. It's great. So I went in and had my interview, and I got the job, and I didn't really look back. I sort of stayed with the same company for 7 years from getting that first interview. So I was extremely lucky, because it's almost unheard of that people, you know, go in and they end up staying at a company rather than just staying on a per project basis. So yeah, I sort of stayed on, and my first sort of production that I really worked on was Sweeney Todd. And I sort of found myself on set with Tim Burton, and doing green screen extensions and trying to do sort of, you know, live virtual compositing with CG backgrounds. And I just thought, this is so cool and amazing. Why would anybody not want to get involved with this? And yeah, I learned a lot. It was a very steep learning curve from day one, basically. But like I say, all the cinematography, all the camera techniques, everything, sort of the whole film language, I sort of learnt on the job. So it was really fantastic. And previs really gives you the opportunity to get in from ground level, you know, when they're first starting to build a show, and you can, you know, you sort of create your or flex your creative muscles to go in and go, right, this is the great shot, this is the sequence, how is this going to work? And you have so much more creativity, as opposed to just coming in and going, right, I'm going to be an animator, and you end up working on the same shot for 3 months or whatever it may be, depending on the complexity. So yeah, previs, it's always varied. You never know what you're going to get, and a lot of times it's problem solving as well, which is one thing that I really love. I love the whole going from, right, this is what the vision is, this is the previs, this is the shots we want to create, how are we going to take those, how are we going to, you know, break that down and shoot it for real on set, how is that all going to work, you know, is it even possible? If not, what are these cool solutions that we can come up with to sort of make this work and, you know, find great shots? So yeah, it's always full of challenges, which I find really interesting and sort of stimulates to keep you going, and you're always sort of looking forward to the next show. So on Game of Thrones, the Third Floor provided previs, techvis, and virtual production solutions for the show. For Game of Thrones particularly, as it's a TV series, the schedule is extremely tight. We don't have the luxury, as some sort of big budget films have, of being able to go back and do reshoots, or even the budget to go and, you know, spend a lot of money doing these things. So we have to spend so much time pre-production planning, which is where previs sort of comes to the forefront. We work so close in collaboration with all the other departments, stunts, art department. We work with, obviously, directors who are like, they're our guides to, you know, we're there to create their visions, with DOPs. We just work with everybody to make sure that what we create in previs can be finally shot, and you're not going to get any nasty surprises when you're on set. So for Thrones, it's always it's a complicated show. We have many sequences. Season 6, we had 10 episodes, so that's 10 hours of, you know, footage that we have to potentially sort of work through, and, you know, pretty much every single VFX shot, we tend to go ahead and previs. So it's the equivalent of doing 3 feature films in one go. So the scale of the work is absolutely immense. On season 6, we had 6 artists and we worked for 6 months. We had a virtual production crew that came in during shoot for all the dragon shots. We had tech artists who stayed on during shoot to basically break down plates that had come in so we could go and tech for elements such as fire and explosions and things like that. So we basically, we were sort of amalgamation of all departments in one coming together. We provided the crew with a very clear sort of schematic of this is what the sequence is. We give them detailed technical diagrams, renders of this is how it's going to be shot, and then they can go ahead and just shoot it. And then there's, you know, hopefully the problems are preempted, or what do I say? Hopefully the problems are anticipated and we can solve them before they become huge problems later down the line on set. As previs supervisor on Battle of the Bastards, I basically managed my team to go through, and we started off with shot creation, started with talking with the director, sitting down going, right, how is this going to play out? Battle of the Bastards was one that was different. Most sequences we normally have storyboards to work from. Battle of the Bastards, we just had a sort of a rough idea. Miguel Sapochnik, the director, gave us like the lay of the land and said, right, this is how the battle's gonna play out. Let's go ahead and block that out, and then we can start doing shots from there. So it was sort of a slightly different process from the usual that we have on the show. So, like I say, I go through, I make sure that we have all our digital assets prepared, I make sure we have all our pre-animation prepared, I make sure that our animators know exactly what they're doing, I make sure that all the data and all the shots that we create goes through to editorial, and then I can, you know, basically liaise with editorial and the directors and also VFX supervisors, making sure that everybody has their say, and then if there are any issues we can go through into the previs and solve those. So it's basically just managing all these different pieces to come in and making sure that the final sort of solution that we have for the previs works for everybody. The biggest challenges we had are always time and just the scale and complexity of everything. The schedule was very tight, so we have to be able to work fast and be able to make changes quickly. And we've sort of adapted to that in our workflow by making sure, like for Battle of the Bastards, we could create set pieces and have like building blocks of animation. We would have cached geometry with animations such as archers or cavalry that we could bring in and you know, change and swap out as needed. So if, you know, we go through, the shots aren't working, we can go, right, we need to go and redo, you know, 30 shots, how long is that going to take? Well, instead of having to go back and reanimate everything, we can just go, right, we'll swap those out, and then it may take a couple of days as opposed to taking a couple of weeks. So yeah, it's being able to be flexible and being able to change quickly, which I think is the sort of the key to previs. Yeah. On season 6, Game of Thrones, we did a virtual production for Danny on the Buck. It's always sort of quite fun just to sort of see, I don't know if people are familiar, the buck is basically a bucking bronco, but a dragon. So we have a carved model of Drogon's back, in which we get actress Emilia Clarke to go and sit on, and we can pre-animate the motion of that along with the camera moves. So we can basically know exactly what we need to shoot, and we can sort of set that up and do motion control shoots to shoot her elements, so we can then composite her back on top of the dragon afterwards. So we have we had like a lone artist, Casey Schutz, who's head of our virtual production based in LA, and he came out and he did that shoot. And the virtual production shoot for season 6 was approximately, I think, 27 shots that we had to do, and that was shot over a period of about 2 weeks. We also did fire elements that we used for virtual production, where we had, I think it's probably been explained for sort of version 5, but we did the whole flamethrower on a motion control crane as well, shooting the flame elements for the dragons. So that was extra sort of additional pieces that we shot and did virtual production for. It's always like every production is always different, and even Thrones was a good example where we were working with 5 different directors for season 6, and each director has their own way of working. Some completely embrace the idea of using technology and virtual production, and others are very traditional in the way that they want to manage how they run their shows. Working with directors, you always have to sort of, it's a matter of reading people basically and going, right, what do they need? What is the best way to work with them? And you always, you do your best to accommodate and make it as simple for them and as easy for them to have control over everything that they want to do. We don't want to sort of go, right, this is the way we're going to do it, and you don't want to sort of like tell them how they're going to be doing previs. You want them to go, right, or we go to them and say, right, how can we help you? What do you want? How do you want to do this? And then we try and accommodate all their requests. Like I say, there's always politics, and it can be tricky sort of going through. But I think if you're doing your job well, then you should be able to sort of basically manage everybody, and managing expectations is another thing, because you may get expectations from producers, and the director might want something else from you, the DOP wants something else, or so it's just like I say, sort of mediating, managing, and and also producing the work for the final sort of outcome. So yeah, it can be tricky, but it's it can also be a real sort of joy when everything sort of comes together and everybody's really happy, and then you've done your job really well.